Against all odds, fourth down forever, how the Marshall University plane crash inspired me. It's an actually glory story about how the Marshall University's tragic loss of his entire football team, and then my life being the son of a sharecropper, came together. For example, the Marshall football team was never even expected to ever win a game again. In fact, the program almost was nixed by the NCAA because of the tragic plane event. But because of persistence from the president of the university, the program was alive. And then my life, me coming to Marshall University, enabled me to build my life from ashes. Being the son of a sharecropper, there was no hope. I wasn't given a chance. Given the circumstances that I was living in, sharecropper kids wasn't taught to learn or how to read and write. They were taught to work. But I got my break when my father, against all odds, moved to Ohio during the middle of December in the cold winter, and that enabled me to get my start. And I seized the opportunity, and that's what the book is all about. Against all odds, fourth down forever, how the Marshall University plane crash inspired me. It really gives the readers insight through my life of heartbreak, triumph, and perseverance. And I wrote the book to my dying mentor's request that I share my story with the world. In a time of despair, recession, and oppression, my book carries a message of hope, generosity, and self-empowerment that transcends race, gender, and age. Unlike most books, my book was written under a lot of pressure. And I mean pressure in that my professor, whom had kicked me out of class 45 years ago, and he just told me I was loafing and that classroom was reserved for students. He told me, don't come back into my classroom until you're a responsible student. So I walked out sulking, and I came back, and I decided that I wanted to be an athlete, a student athlete, opposed to the athlete student. But there it started. I'd gone to a reunion at Marshall University. It was a 4-year reunion commemorating the crash victims that died in the crash. For those that might not know, in 1970, Marshall lost his entire football team in a plane crash. So I was part of a group called the Young Thundering Herd. We were the group that was brought in, not so much to win titles, but just to keep the program viable and alive and functional. And by doing so, I got a lot of sense of gratitude by being a part of something that was trying to be established at the time of the grief-stricken program. And Coach Lingo sold me on the fact that he said, a lot of schools want you, but we need you. So I passed on Notre Dame, Ohio State, Nebraska, the bigger notable schools, to play for Marshall for that reason and purpose. But going back to Dr. Mills, who had kicked me out of class 40 years ago, and when I came back from that reunion, Lockheed Martin, my employer, the community relations department, decided that they wanted to do a story about me. And along with the story, one of the vice presidents of Lockheed had life-size posters of me posted throughout the facilities. And my co-workers saw these posters, and they were intrigued by me and the Marshall story, and they asked for more, and they even asked for a book. I thought about it and said, oh yeah, maybe. So I went and I bounced it off of my professor, Dr. Marvin Mills, and he said, Les, he said, I think you should write the book. He said, that could be your legacy. And I want you to write this book. And he said, you never failed me since I kicked you out of my class 45 years ago. He said that I want you to promise me that you'll write this book. I want you to promise me that you'll write the book before I pass. And I promised him that I would. And I started writing the book on that day, March 30, 2012. And I, with a lot of pressure and a desire and a commitment to write it, I started writing the book, and it took me 8 months. And ironically, I wrote the book, and it was completed on November 14th, 2012. The significance of the date is that was the exact date that the Marshall plane crash occurred. I didn't try to make it that way, but it just happened. Because throughout that 8 months, even myself, although he was battling cancer, I was going through some personal illnesses and injuries of my own. Low back pain, post low back pain surgery, dislocated kneecap, a bone marrow cancer watch of my own, And I went, and each day tirelessly I would write something every day, and I didn't stop. And then the most gratifying moment of my life was when I completed the book on April 13th, 2013. And upon completion of the book, Marshall University asked me to come and do a book signing. And by that request, it gave me a window to sign a copy to Dr. Mills, who was residing in Lexington, Kentucky. And, it was just a story it was a happy ending to the story. And that I was able to give Dr. Mills my first signed copy. And that was the most gratifying thing I've done in my life, because he was still alive and I was able to write the book for him. And also I was able to honor my phenomenal parents who did so much for me and my 14 siblings. Against All Odds, Fourth Down Forever. You can purchase the book on Amazon.com, Barnes & Nobles, or on my site, author LesterBryanHicks.com, and it's available on paperback and ebook.